All right, today we are diving into a book that honestly has probably started more arguments and opened more minds than almost any other personal finance book out there. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to cut through all the noise and get right to the core ideas that have made people completely rethink how they look at money. And it all starts with a single sentence designed to make you question everything.
Talk about an opening line, right? Robert Kiyosaki, the author, just drops this bombshell on you from the get-go. This is a direct shot at the exact advice most of us grew up hearing. He's basically saying that the old playbook, the one our parents followed, is obsolete. It's for a world that just doesn't exist anymore. So, what's the new playbook? Well, it all begins with a story about two very different dads.
So, the whole book is built around this really fascinating premise. Kiyosaki had two major father figures in his life. There was his actual father, who he calls Poor Dad, and then there was his best friend's father, who became Rich Dad. Both men gave him advice, but man, their ideas about money were polar opposites.
And here's the kicker, the paradox that sets up the entire book. Both of these guys made a lot of money. But Poor Dad, who was super smart, had a PhD and everything, was constantly stressed about money. Meanwhile, Rich Dad, who dropped out after the 8th grade, ended up as one of the wealthiest people in Hawaii. And that contrast just screams the book's first big lesson. Getting good grades has almost nothing to do with being good with money.
And you know where their advice really clashed? It was about something most of us think about, our home. Poor Dad believed his house was his biggest asset, his nest egg. Rich Dad, he thought that was a terrible idea. He saw his house as a liability. This one little disagreement opens up a huge chasm in how they saw the world, which brings us to the path that Poor Dad, and most people, end up on.
Yeah, Rich Dad had a pretty blunt name for this traditional life path of just working for a paycheck. He called it the rat race. It's that path that feels so normal and responsible, but as he saw it, it's a trap that keeps people in a state of financial anxiety their whole lives.
So what exactly is the rat race? Well, think about it. It's this cycle that just feeds itself. You work your butt off for a company to get paid. Then the government takes a huge slice of that in taxes right off the top. And then what's left goes to the bank for your mortgage, your car loan, your credit cards. You're the one doing all the work, but you're really working for everyone else first.
In this cycle, it probably sounds pretty familiar. You do everything you're supposed to do, you get that good job, and hey, your salary starts to go up. So you do what people do. You buy a nicer house, a better car, but all that stuff costs more money, which means you've got to work even harder to get promotions and raises. And when you get that raise, your taxes go up, your expenses go up, you're running faster and faster on the wheel, but you're not actually moving forward.
And that's the metaphor the book uses that just hits so hard. It's like you're a hamster on a wheel. Your life starts to revolve around just paying the bills. And it's fear that keeps you running, the fear of what would happen if you stopped. So, if you're stuck in that gauge, how on earth do you get out?
Well, according to Rich Dad, there is an escape plan, but it has nothing to do with working harder or getting another raise. It's about understanding one simple but incredibly powerful lesson that the rich know and most people don't.
So let me ask you this. Before I tell you what it is, what do you think is the main reason people struggle with money? Is it that they don't make enough? Bad luck? The economy? What is it?
The answer, in the book, is almost shockingly simple. The number one reason for financial struggle is not knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. That's it. Everything else flows from understanding this one core concept.
Forget all the complicated accounting jargon you've ever heard. Rich Dad's definition is just dead simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. It works for you so you don't have to. Think a rental property that pays you every month, or stocks that give you dividends. And a liability? Well, it's the exact opposite. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. This is the whole reason Rich Dad said your house is a liability. Between the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the repairs, it is a constant drain on your cash.
And this simple distinction leads to two completely different patterns of behavior. The rich spend their lives buying assets. Their main source of income isn't their job, it's the cash flowing from their assets. The poor and middle class, they get their income from a job, and then they use that money to buy liabilities that they think are assets, like a boat or a timeshare. The result? Their asset column is empty, but their liability column just gets bigger and bigger. Okay, so knowing the difference is one thing, but how do you actually use that knowledge to get off the hamster wheel? Rich Dad's advice was simple and, frankly, genius. Mind your own business.
Now, minding your own business does not mean you quit your job tomorrow, not at all. It means you keep your 9 to 5 to pay the bills, but you pour every extra dollar and every spare minute into building your real business. And your business is your asset column. You have to start thinking of every single dollar you put in there as an employee that works for you 24/7, whose only job is to make more money and hire more dollar employees.
Once you start doing this, it completely changes how you think about buying nice things. See, most people buy luxuries with debt, which just makes their liability column heavier, but the rich play by a different rule.
Let's use the classic example of buying a fancy car. The common way is to go get a loan. Now you have this huge monthly payment that's just sucking cash out of your pocket. It's a massive liability. But Rich Dad's way? You first go buy an asset, let's say it's a small rental property, that generates enough cash flow every month to cover the car payment. See the difference? The asset buys the luxury. Now the car isn't a burden, it's a trophy for being financially smart.
When you really step back and look at all this, you start to realize something huge. Not everyone in the economy is playing the same game. In fact, employees and owners are playing by two totally different sets of rules.
And you can see this so clearly when a big company announces it's downsizing. For the employees who get laid off, it's a catastrophe. Their main source of income just vanished. But what happens for the company and its owners, the investors? Well, it's usually great news. Wall Street loves it when companies cut costs, and the stock price often goes up.
It's a harsh reality, but there it is. What spells financial disaster for an employee often means a financial win for an owner or an investor. They're just playing the game from a different position with a different rule book. The goal isn't just to be a good piece on the board. The goal is to own the board.
And that really leaves us with one final crucial question to ask ourselves. The traditional path, the Poor Dad path, teaches you the rules to be a great employee. Rich Dad's path teaches you the rules to be an owner. So as you look at your own financial life, you have to ask, are you spending your time learning the rules to the right game?